It is negative 9 degrees Celsius out there, so we are going to heat things up with super weapons. That's right, Tempest Rising is getting super weapons, folks. After years of saying, what super weapons? Never heard of them. Somebody else did that. They're coming. Also, Broken Arrow's team has committed to a 3-year roadmap that promises to fix the infrastructure problems that have plagued the launch. Green Tree Games is expanding Burden of Command beyond the American perspective with 4 D-Day scenarios. Welcome to Critical News. Before our main story, we're going off script to give you a little injection of some culture. We're going to talk Dwarf Fortress as our secret, hidden prequel story. Dwarf Fortress is improving sieges, folks. That's right. You can no longer turtle. Everyone in an RTS turtles, no more. From now on, you get 1, maybe 2 seasons of turtling, and then your siegers are coming at you, and they're coming at you hot. The trolls have giant pickaxes. They're going to break down your walls, and the goblins are coming with weapons and ropes. So they can climb over everything, they can dig down. You're no longer safe. You're going to have to get creative, you're going to have to evolve, you're going to have to get after it. So now, on to our main story number 1. Tempest Rising is getting super weapons, which represents a complete reversal from Ironworks' state of design philosophy. The studio spent years telling players that Tempest Rising wouldn't do super weapons. Community feedback came in, and you know what? They changed that calculation because your voice matters, folks. Your voice matters. And the next major update is going to add faction-specific super weapons that take the concept in different directions than Command & Conquer's standard implementations. The drone strike station will function as both intelligence asset and orbital strike platform. Once constructed, it provides a massive vision radius around itself, extending the information advantage across the map. The structure remains vulnerable because that vision bonus only works while the building stands, creating a high-value target for Dynasty players who need to blind GDF's surveillance network. The weapon ability sends 9 drone turrets down from orbit at a terminal velocity. The impact damage alone can flatten structures and vehicle formations, but the turrets don't disappear after the initial strike. Each turret will operate autonomously for 60 seconds, deploying 3 respawning combat drones while active. That creates a temporary defensive zone that forces Dynasty players to either commit significant forces to clear the area or cede map control for a full minute. That is huge, folks. Dynasty's excavator platform takes a totally different approach. This structure exists to deliver units through underground transit and trigger earthquakes that liquefy armor. The strike team drill pod loads up 18 infantry units into armored drill pods that burrow beneath enemy positions and surface behind fortifications. Dynasty players garrison their assault teams, launch the pod, and watch it tunnel under whatever defensive line GDF has established. The pod includes medical kits perk that heals damaged infantry during transit, meaning your assault force will arrive at full strength. The combat excavator is the platform's primary weapon. When fully charged, it sends an earth-shattering drill to a designated location that triggers 3 consecutive seismic waves. The description says these waves liquefy armor and turn enemy units and structures to dust. The combat excavator also functions as a unit transport surfacing after the final earthquake to deploy garrison troops at the epicenter. The combination of area denial and force projection gives Dynasty a tool for breaking entrenched positions that don't depend on surface mobility. You gotta love that interesting design, folks. Those 2 super weapons are doing the same thing. That asymmetry they've emphasized throughout the development is key. GDF gets persistent vision and autonomous defensive systems. Dynasty gets underground logistics and seismic weapons. That aligns with their extra special little industrial brutalism. The studio called these additions game changers and teased additional future content announcements. That phrasing suggests more than balance patches, especially given Tempest Rising Game Awards nomination for Best Sim/Strategy Game. The third faction, the Veti, remains unplayable but planned for future updates. And these Superweapon implementations set expectations for how that faction's equivalent system might function. Might be a surprise there. Community response on the forums showed that the players are a little split. Competitive multiplayer players argue Superweapons lower skill ceilings and extend match times artificially. Campaign and skirmish players wanted bigger explosions and dramatic turning points. The studio has chosen to serve the larger audience while implementing mechanics that require more than point-and-click execution. Whether that satisfies either, both, or none will remain to be seen. We'll wait with bated breath. Broken Arrow. The team behind published a developmental roadmap extending through early 2027 that addresses some of the infrastructure problems that have defined Broken Arrow's troubled, but perhaps still promising launch. The timeline covers technical rebuilds, 3 DLCs in 2026, and a major faction in 2027. This represents the studio's first statement about how they plan to stabilize a game that peaked at 50,000 concurrent players during launch weekend, but has unfortunately shed thousands of users due to connection issues and anti-cheat concerns. The remainder of 2025 focuses on technical updates and allied bot integration for skirmish mode. That bot addition is going to matter more than it appears because it enables flexible scenario creation and lets players experiment with tactics alongside AI partners rather than just fighting alongside them. The team wants bots that react to battlefield situations and support players at critical moments, which requires pathfinding and tactical decision making that goes beyond basic unit control. 2026 brings the infrastructure work that should have been completed before launch, let's be honest. The studio is moving key gameplay systems to server-side architecture, including economy management, unit spawning, and action processing. This migration serves 2 purposes. It reduces cheating by removing client-side authority, and it enables the match replay system that's proven far more complex than they anticipated. The replay functionality requires supporting tools and internal mechanisms that document every action and state change throughout a match. 3 specialization DLCs arrive in 2026, each adding new unit sets with unique weapon systems and additional vehicles. They have not specified which nations or doctrines these specializations represent, but that hasn't stopped us from speculating. We have centered our speculation on Germany, Chinese, or maybe US Russian variants. The match history tool and spectator mode both ship in 2026, which positions Broken Arrow for tournament play and content creation. Spectator mode especially matters for competitive RTS communities because it enables casting and audience engagement. Quality of life improvements will roll out continuously starting in 2026. The updated victory screen adds match reporting functionality for violations. Battle chatter expansion includes more voice commands and unit reactions. Players gain the ability to select enemy units and inspect their statistics, which provides crucial information for tactical decision making. The line of sight visualization tool gets enhanced to show viewing ranges more clearly. Offline skirmish mode becomes available for players without internet connection. Early 2027 delivers a major expansion with a completely new faction. This faction is going to include its own campaign with deck modification systems that provide flexible army composition. New theaters of war are going to expand the map pool beyond the Baltics. Additional vehicles and units supplement existing specializations. They have described this as a major DLC that is going to fundamentally change the strategic landscape, which suggests production values comparable to the base game's 2-faction offering. The roadmap was necessary because Broken Arrow launched in, let's just admit it, rough condition. The network infrastructure couldn't handle the player load despite months of closed beta testing. Anti-cheat implementation arrived weeks after launch. balance complaints persist about unit interactions and specialization viability. The fact that 2 programmers handled network architecture for 50,000 concurrent players is impressive from a technical standpoint, but it does explain why some problems emerged. The developers' communication approach throughout this process has been unusually direct. The studio acknowledged they have no prior game development experience with starting this project in 2018. They documented crossing the valley of death where most projects fail. They detailed the publisher relationship that enabled full-time development in 2021. That transparency has built some goodwill, but it doesn't fix features or connection problems. The roadmap's credibility depends on execution. The developers have committed to dates and deliverables, which creates accountability but also sets expectations. Okay, this 3-year timeline suggests they have a long-term commitment, which is good. No more abandoned games, which matters because we care about that. Whether Broken Arrow reaches the level it truly deserves remains speculative, but this roadmap at least defines what heights they could reach. Green Tree Games has opened the Steam page for Burden of Command 3 Nations, a D-Day expansion that shifts from American infantry to British paratroopers, U.S. airborne, and Wehrmacht mechanized forces. The DLC releases in early 2026 and contains 4 standalone scenarios centered on Pegasus Bridge operations during the opening hours of Operation Overlord. This represents the first time Burden of Command's leadership-focused tactical systems get applied to non-American forces, which introduces new mechanics and command challenges shaped by different military doctrines. Pegasus Bridge puts you in command of British paratroopers tasked with seizing the critical bridge over the Cape Canal. The scenario doesn't start on June 6, months before the assault. You play through civilian decisions about helping French resistance gather intelligence on the bridge garrison. That prelude structure creates consequences that affect the quality of information supporting your assault force, which means the civilian choices determine what you know about German defensive positions when gliders land. Benneville follows direct from Pegasus Bridge. You hold the village overlooking the captured bridge against German counterattacks. The scenario tests defensive command under pressure because Wehrmacht forces understand the bridge's strategic value and will commit resources to retaking it. How long you hold depends on positioning, supply management, and keeping troops from breaking under sustained assault. Steel Rain flips perspective to Wehrmacht command. You lead the mechanized German force attempting to retake Pegasus Bridge in the chaos after airborne landings. This scenario uses the same rule set under different constraints, pushing armor and infantry into a defensive objective while managing morale against troops who know the strategic picture is collapsing. Playing both sides of the same engagement exposes how defensive advantages compound when defenders arrive first and prepare positions. Myers Hill shifts back to Allied forces with U.S. paratroopers. This scenario incorporates interactive live-action video created with Colonel John Antle, the former executive producer of Brothers in Arms and a leadership expert. The video sequences frame command decisions and reinforce the psychological weight of choices made under fire. How extensively these sequences integrate with gameplay mechanics remains unclear from available information, but they represent a production investment beyond text-based narrative. The DLC adds a 4:3 aspect ratio for historical photographs, which better matches period 35mm photography and modern landscape monitors. This addresses presentation complaints from the base game's initial release. Burden of Command uses historical photographs as storytelling tools to ground tactical decisions in reality, documented reality, and proper aspect ratios improve this cohesion. The base game launched in April 2025 as what Green Tree Games describes as an emotionally authentic tactic leadership RPG. You play a company-level captain in the historical Cotton Ballers, guiding troops through a World War II campaign where psychology matters as much as firepower. The tactical layer uses alternating activation with limited officer action pools. Moving your officer, ordering squads forward, or rallying panic troops all draw from the same budget, which forces prioritization decisions that reflect actual command constraints. We interviewed Dr. Luke Hughes, the game designer, back in episode 22. Check it out. The link will be on screen if you want the full breakdown of how the system works. Combat emphasizes suppression and morale over casualty counts. Research into period psychology feeds rules where troops pin, panic, or go to ground rather than simply dying. Scenarios measure success through objectives completed and casualties avoided, not enemies killed. That design philosophy continues into Three Nations, where playing Wehrmacht forces in a losing war creates command dilemmas about trading lives for time while serving an authoritarian regime. The DLC also examines how different national doctrines shape command choices. British officers face expectations about maintaining stiff upper lips and holding until relieved. Wehrmacht officers navigate orders that conflict with military necessity as strategic collapse becomes undeniable. U.S. officers work with troops who have different training backgrounds and equipment priorities than British paras. These aren't cosmetic differences, they affect morale. They affect unit behavior under stress and what command actions remain viable when situations deteriorate. Alright, moving on to some headlines. Company of Heroes 3 released the Endure Defy battlegroup DLC with 4 action additions. US forces get Italian partisans with tunnel networks and sabotage mechanics. Wehrmacht receives last stand options including Panther Turb defensive positions and propaganda towers. British forces and Polish cavalry focused on veteran combat bonuses with Polish Crude, Sherman Fireflies, and land mattress artillery. Deutsche Afrika Corps bring Kriegsmarine naval support featuring hardpoint construction, supply drop logistics, Dutka bombers, Fritz glide bombs. Each battlegroup works in multiplayer, co-op, and skirmish modes. Last week, Xenopurge version 1 launched. Traptix added the Bioweave Cell squad that collects DNA from killed Xenos for permanent stat improvements. The system rewards aggressive play but risks overextension. 4 variants per squad provide 16 starting loadouts, each skipping early missions except base variants. The Spitter enemy maintains range with corrosive projectiles and struggles in melee. 150 achievements, cloud saves, and rebalanced difficulty scaling. Known issues include mission map loading failures and invisible soldiers, hopefully addressed through autosaves before missions. Crownbound launched from Wolpertinger Games as a fantasy RTS that removes direct unit control. You influence heroes through bounties, rewards, and kingdom management rather than commanding them directly. Heroes level independently, buy equipment from markets, and pursue their own goals, including fear and ambition. Permadeath creates roster turnover. The game combines building construction, research progression, and hero motivation systems across scenario-based campaigns. Gold functions as your primary power because heroes respond to financial incentives more than orders. And one more last little plug for the little game that could, Dwarf Fortress. The siege weapon update is epic. Check it out. Okay, folks, that's everything you need to know about strategy games this week. On Friday's episode, Jack and Tim pinned down Dr. Ben Engel from Capture Age to talk about how Age of Empires 2 remains relevant 25 years after launch. You don't want to miss this one. Last, but certainly not least, one little teaser. Everybody is getting Immortal Empires. That's right. Everybody. You get Immortal Empires. You get Immortal Empires. Everybody's getting Immortal Empires. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, Google it, mate. Thanks, everybody. Blah, blah, blah. Lots of love and kisses. Please, 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 please check out the podcast. Critical Moves. We aim to please.